All right, strap in, everyone, because
Uh-oh.
today we are going deep on MCWP 510.
The Marine Corps planning process.
This document.
Oh, it's a big one.
Yeah, it is. It's basically the guidebook for how Marines
How we plan.
plan and execute.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. From like small patrols
Small unit stuff.
all the way up to,
Massive campaigns.
yeah, huge campaigns.
It's the foundation.
It really is. So whether you're, getting ready for a new assignment, or you're just brushing up on doctrine,
Or just curious.
or just curious about how Marine Corps planning works,
How we think.
this is going to be a good one for you. We're going to unpack some key concepts.
Big ones.
Like mission command,
Absolutely.
the 6 steps of the Marine Corps planning process.
Gotta know them.
We're even going to get into design methodology.
How we adapt.
Yeah, how Marines stay adaptable in a world that
Keeps changing.
keep changing. Exactly.
And rapidly.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, even with all the new tech,
Drones.
cyber warfare, all that stuff,
You name it.
the principles in MCWP 510, they still apply,
They really do.
which kind of speaks to how the document focuses on adaptability.
Timeless truths.
Yeah, those timeless truths about conflict.
Conflict, competition.
Now, one thing that really jumped out at me when I was reading this was
What's that?
just how much it emphasizes time and
It's
risk.
two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. In a way, MCWP 510 says that flat out,
Flat out.
time is the most important factor in a military operation.
More than firepower.
More than anything.
It's about speed.
It's not just about having a good plan.
You gotta be faster.
You got to be faster than the enemy.
That's the key.
The document uses a phrase that I really like.
Let's hear it.
Winning the time fight.
Love that.
I think that really captures it perfectly.
I does. Because you've got to make decisions
Tact.
faster than the other guy.
Faster than your adversary.
That's how you win.
So winning the time fight.
It's a good soundbite.
It is, but how do we actually do that?
How do we put it into practice?
Yeah, how does MCWP 510 help Marines?
Well, it promotes this concept of intuitive understanding.
Intuitive understanding.
It's like,
What is that?
think of it like,
Like a gut feeling.
yeah, after years of experience,
Danger.
training, education, you've seen it all.
You just know.
You just know
You can make the right call
in the heat of the moment.
without having to,
Overthink it.
without overthinking it.
That's powerful stuff.
So we're talking about building up this
Almost instinctive level of competence.
competence. Yeah.
And MCWP 510 lays out the framework,
How to get there.
how to build that. It emphasizes clear communication,
Of the commander's
the
intent.
commander's intent, and using task and purpose
When you're operating within...
in an established paradigm,
Okay, so what that lets Marines do is operate.
autonomously.
Yeah, they can make
On the
decisions
fly,
without...
micromanagement.
Yeah, constant micromanagement.
Exactly.
It makes sense. It's all about empowering those. The people on the ground to be able to
Act decisively.
act decisively, yeah.
But that comes with,
Risk.
of course, inherent risk.
You can't avoid risk in a military operation.
Absolutely not. But the document acknowledges that.
It does.
And it provides a structure
Okay.
to assess and manage that risk.
So commanders can make
Manage-
informed decisions, even when there's a lot of uncertainty.
They understand
They get it.
that speed is important. They own the risk
They own the risk.
at the end of the day.
All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts of MCWP 510,
The good stuff
the 6 steps.
of the Marine Corps planning process.
Now, for those who maybe haven't cracked open this document in a while,
Refresher.
we've got problem framing,
Step 1.
course of action development,
COA Dev.
COA Dev for short, course of action wargames,
Wargaming.
then course of action comparison and decision,
Decisions.
orders development, and finally transition.
That's the whole process.
Now, what I found really interesting is
Oh, that's not,
the document recognizes that planning,
it's not always.
it's not a perfectly linear thing.
Rarely is.
You have to adapt.
Things change.
New information comes up
all the time.
all the time, and you've got to be ready to adjust.
You got it.
So MCWP 510, it stresses
Flexibility.
flexibility, recognizing that you might have to revisit,
Earlier steps.
earlier steps in the process
Yeah.
based on what you learn as you go.
Exactly.
So you could be in the wargaming phase
You could.
and realize
Oh, boy.
we need to go back and completely reframe the problem we're trying to solve.
Happens all the time.
So it's this continuous loop
Uh-huh.
of assessing, planning, and adapting.
You got it.
It's not like following a recipe. It's
No,
more like
a set of guidelines.
a set of dynamic guidelines for a complex situation.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, speaking of navigating complexity,
Yeah.
there's a big focus in MCWP 510,
Doggone.
this thing called design methodology.
Now, that's a mouthful.
It is.
But it's important.
I'll admit, when I first read that, I was like,
What is that?
what is that? It sounded a bit abstract,
A little bit.
but it's actually super relevant.
To modern warfare.
Yeah. It's all about,
Imagine
trying to build
a Lego set
a Lego set. Yeah.
without the instructions.
Okay. Yeah.
You have a general idea,
You know what you want to make.
but you got to be flexible.
Adapt as you go.
Exactly. That's design methodology.
In a nutshell.
It is.
So we're encouraging commanders and their staffs to
Beyond
those rigid,
formulaic approaches.
no cookie cutter solutions.
Yep.
We need to be more
Creative. Problem solving.
Yeah, adaptable.
Adaptive.
So it's less about following a script,
And more about
having a framework.
for thinking on your feet.
I like that.
The world is unpredictable.
It is.
You can't plan for everything.
Absolutely not. So design methodology helps us
Grapple with that.
grapple with that. Yeah.
Now, MCWP 510, it breaks it down
Okay.
into key elements.
Like what?
First, you got to describe the current state of things.
Where are we now?
Exactly. Then, what does the desired end state look like?
Where do we want to be?
What are we trying to achieve?
Oh, come here.
Then you clearly define the problem.
And develop an operational approach.
But remember, this
Yeah.
whole time, you're constantly reframing your understanding.
Because this situation is
Evolving.
Yeah.
Always evolving.
It's like a game of chess.
Oh, good analogy.
You got to be 2 steps ahead.
Always thinking about
What's the enemy going to do?
how are they going to react?
You got to anticipate their moves.
And this all ties back to that quote from John Boyd
Oh, a good one.
that's highlighted in the document.
What is it?
Machines don't fight wars.
Terrains don't fight wars.
People fight wars.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Design methodology really puts an emphasis on
The human element.
the human element of conflict.
Understanding the people involved.
Yeah, both friendly and enemy.
It's crucial.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about time
The planning process.
and design methodology.
We've covered a lot.
We have. But how does this all connect back to
Mission command.
Mission Command, another key theme throughout MCWP 510?
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
Mission command is the philosophical underpinning.
It underpins everything else.
It does.
So we're talking about empowering those subordinate leaders,
Giving them the authority
to make decisions.
within the commander's intent.
Yeah, so instead of trying to micromanage everything,
You give them the freedom
to act independently
to achieve the objective.
within the boundaries of that overall objective.
That's the key.
MCWP 510 even uses a historical example
No, tell me about it.
to illustrate this concept.
Right, lay it on me.
General MacArthur, during the Korean War,
MacArthur, okay.
specifically his campaign concept, the Incheon Landing.
Incheon, bold move.
He articulated his strategic objectives,
Clearly,
but he gave his staff the freedom
the latitude
to develop multiple courses of action.
within that framework.
So its clear intent
Empower subordinates,
can lead to success.
even in really challenging situations.
Absolutely. And that's really what MCWP 510
Is trying to do.
is trying to create
A culture of adaptability.
adaptability and initiative.
Within the Marine Corps.
Now, for our listeners out there who might be,
Getting ready for a real operation.
what are some of the key things they should keep in mind from MCWP 510?
Some key takeaways.
Yeah, key takeaways.
All right, well, first,
Mhm.
understand the operational environment.
Understand the OE.
The OE.
Yeah.
MCWP 510, it really stresses this.
It does.
You got to understand what they call
The PMESII variable.
political, military, economic, social
Information.
infrastructure.
How those factors
Trade
shape the
and
battlefield and influence your decisions.
So it's not just about military strength.
Well,
It's about
understanding the context.
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture, you got it.
Okay, what else? Second, define the problem set.
Define the problem set.
Now, it sounds simple,
It does.
but MCWP 510, it provides tools
It does.
to really drill down
Drill down.
and articulate
What are we trying to solve here?
what is the problem
You got to know
before you can plan.
before you can even start planning.
Okay.
It's like laying the foundation.
Right before you build a house.
You need that blueprint.
Absolutely.
Now, what's number 3?
Develop a clear commander's intent.
Commander's intent, super important.
We've talked about it,
We have
but it's about articulating the purpose
of the operation
in a way that allows for
flexibility.
initiative,
Think of it like,
giving your team a compass
okay,
and a destination.
but they get to choose the route.
They figure out the best way to get there.
It's about empowering them to make those judgment calls.
In the field.
Yeah. All right. What else?
Fourth, consider the information environment.
The information environment, another big one.
MCWP 510 recognizes this.
Information is a weapon.
It is, and you've got to be able to
shape the narrative,
counter the enemy's propaganda.
ensure information dominance.
It's a battle that's fought
Constantly.
all the time, even in peacetime.
So what's the last key takeaway?
The most important one.
Okay, hit me with it.
Adaptability.
Adaptability.
Plans rarely survive first contact.
With the enemy.
So be
Oh.
ready.
Based on the situation.
So you're saying we should have a plan,
But be ready.
throw it out the window.
If you need to.
It's more about having
A framework.
a framework for thinking.
Not a rigid script.
This has been
A great overview.
a great overview of MCWP 510,
We've just scratched the surface.
but it's a good foundation
I think
for understanding these core concepts.
Absolutely.
And as always,
We encourage our listeners.
to explore these topics further,
Think critically.
ask questions.
And never stop learning.
We'll be right back after a short break.
Sounds good. As you continue to explore these ideas, I want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay, in today's rapidly evolving operational environment, how can we best leverage the principles of mission command and design methodology to maintain our competitive edge?
That's a great question.
It really gets at the heart of what MCWP 510 is all about.
Yeah, equipping Marines with the mental tools.
To deal with the uncertainty.
The uncertainty inherent in modern warfare.
It's not enough to just react.
We got to anticipate.
You got to be thinking ahead.
We need that
Intellectual agility.
to understand what's driving the situation.
Figure out how to shape the environment to our advantage.
And that's where design methodology comes in.
It is.
It encourages us to
challenge our assumptions.
be open to new information
And constantly reframe the problem.
as the situation evolves.
That's the key.
You know, one thing that really clicked for me while reading MCW 510 was that emphasis on understanding the problem set.
Oh, yes, the problem set.
It almost seems like that's the foundation for applying design methodology.
You're absolutely right.
You have to understand the problem before you can start.
Trying to solve it.
Yeah.
And the document, it actually gives a specific definition for problem set.
Okay, what is it?
The problem set is a concisely worded statement that encompasses the set of problems the commander is tasked to solve.
So it's not just
The immediate tactical situation.
you got to think about the underlying causes.
The interconnected factors that are driving the conflict.
So it's about seeing
In a bigger picture.
the strategic context.
You got it.
Now, defining the problem set,
It's not a one-time thing.
you don't just do it at the beginning.
It's an iterative process.
You're constantly
Well,
refining your understanding
as new information comes in.
as the situation changes.
The battlefield is dynamic.
That sounds like a real challenge.
It can be, especially with the speed and complexity of modern warfare.
So how do we keep a handle on that?
Well, MCWP 510 stresses the importance of collaboration
And communicating.
throughout the planning process.
So it's not just the commander's job to define the problem set,
It's a shared responsibility.
involving the entire staff. You need to have that shared understanding of the situation,
Even when the situation is constantly in flux.
which it always is.
Right, and that's where tools like the commander's intent,
And the concept of operations,
they come into play
they provide that framework
for shared understanding,
and coordinated action
even when the plan itself has to adapt,
to unforeseen circumstances.
which it always will.
It's fascinating how everything comes back to that core idea of adaptability.
It's woven into the very fabric of the document.
Now, MCWP 510 also talks about this thing called critical factors analysis.
When you're developing courses of action,
What exactly does that mean?
it's all about identifying those factors,
The ones that are most likely to determine the outcome of the operation.
whether it's success or failure.
So, the make or break factors.
You could say that.
The document actually defines them.
It does.
Critical factors are those aspects of the operational environment, both friendly and enemy, that are considered to be decisive to the outcome.
So you're focusing your planning efforts.
On those elements that are most likely to make a difference.
You're prioritizing.
Being strategic with your planning.
Exactly. And it's not something you do just once.
At the beginning,
MCWP 510 highlights that critical factors analysis
should be done.
continuously.
Because as the situation changes,
So too will the critical factors.
that are most likely to determine success or failure.
It's a dynamic process.
It really paints a picture of a very dynamic and iterative planning process.
It's not about coming up with the perfect plan on paper.
It's about having that mental framework.
For adapting to an ever-changing environment.
Okay, so MCWP 510 is about
The mental agility.
being comfortable with
I don't
complexity
complicate.
because the world is not a static place.
Our planning processes need to reflect that reality.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the information environment.
a critical factor in modern operations.
Absolutely. MCWP 510 acknowledges that.
The document highlights the importance of understanding the information environment,
Shaping narratives.
countering adversary propaganda,
And ensuring information dominance.
It's a battlefield that exists both in wartime and peacetime.
And it's not just a military battlefield.
You've got government agencies,
The media,
public opinion.
all playing a crucial role.
It's a complex and often contested space.
MCWP 510 really seems to emphasize the need for a coordinated approach
A whole of government strategy.
to be truly effective in the information environment.
Absolutely.
So it's about integrating your actions in the information environment with your overall strategic objective.
Precisely.
And that goes back to
Clear communication.
shared understanding,
Everyone needs to be on the same page
whether they're military or civilian.
when it comes to our objectives in the information environment.
Now, with all this talk about design methodology, critical factors analysis, and the information environment,
You might think MCWP 510 is just focused on high-level strategic planning.
yeah, but it also offers guidance.
For tactical level planning.
Yep.
These principles apply at all levels of command.
So whether you're a squad leader planning a patrol,
Or a division commander planning a major offensive.
the core concepts of MCWP 510.
They're still relevant.
So it's like having
Shared language.
a common approach to planning.
Regardless of the scale of the operation.
We've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
from the importance of time and risk,
To the 6 steps of the planning process.
design methodology,
Mission command.
even the information environment.
It's a lot to digest.
MCWP 510 is a comprehensive and nuanced document.
It really is.
It deserves a close read.
Absolutely. But for our listeners who are looking for some key takeaways,
Yeah.
I'd highlight a few things.
Okay.
First, mental agility.
Being comfortable with
Uncertainty, complexity, and change.
the world is not static.
Our planning processes need to reflect that reality. It's
Right.
clear communication and shared understanding.
From the commander.
All the way down to the most junior Marine.
Everyone needs to understand the objectives.
The intent, the overall plan,
That's what allows for
initiative, and adaptability.
down the chain of command.
You got it.
And finally,
Embrace a design mindset.
what does that mean?
Be willing to challenge assumptions.
Think creatively about problems.
And be ready to constantly reframe our understanding of the situation.
As new information comes in,
You got to be proactive, not reactive.
anticipating challenges
Finding creative solutions.
before they become problems.
That's what MCWP 510 is all about.
Equipping Marines with the mental tools
And the philosophical framework
they need to succeed in these complex and challenging operating environments.
of the 21st century.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It's been my pleasure to discuss these concepts with you.
But before we wrap up,
I want to circle back to that question I posed earlier.
about maintaining our competitive edge
As the world around us continues to evolve,
at an ever-increasing pace.
something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely, MCWP 510 clearly provides some important clues.
And I think we've touched on a few of them already.
But let's dive into those clues a little deeper.
When we come back after the break.
Okay, so we're back and ready to really dig into that question about maintaining our edge
That competitive edge.
in this rapidly changing world. You were saying MCWP 510 kind of gives us some clues.
It does, and one of the big ones is that focus on winning the time fight.
Winning the time fight. Okay, so we've talked about that, but
It's more relevant than ever.
why is that?
I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
Modern warfare.
everything's moving faster.
The speed of information, the weapon systems.
Hypersonic missiles, AI, all that.
You got to be able to decide and act
Quickly.
quickly, decisively.
Otherwise,
Sure.
it's already behind. So how do we actually get faster, though?
Is it just about drilling more?
More reps, more practice.
Well, that's part of it.
Got to have the basics down.
But MCWP 510, it points to something deeper.
Deeper than just muscle memory.
It's about cultivating what they call intuitive understanding.
Intuitive understanding. We touched on that earlier.
It comes from training, education, experience,
But also,
a deep understanding of our doctrine and tactics.
you got to know the playbook inside and out.
So well that you can almost make the right call instinctively.
In the heat of the moment, under pressure.
That's the goal.
And that connects back to mission command, right?
It does.
When leaders at every level,
Have that intuitive understanding.
plus a clear grasp of the commander's intent.
They can make decisions without waiting for orders.
They can act.
Independently, decisively.
They become force multipliers.
Exactly.
It's about empowering them
To use their judgment, their expertise.
to make the right call on the ground.
And that's where design methodology really shines.
Okay, because We can't rely on those rigid pre-planned courses of action.
Not in this kind of environment.
Everything's changing too fast.
We need a way to adapt on the fly.
As new information comes in.
Design methodology provides that framework.
So what are we talking about here? Flexibility, creativity.
Comfort with uncertainty.
Those are some pretty crucial skills for modern warfare.
In MCWP 510, it lays out a path for developing those skills.
Okay, how so?
It encourages a mindset that's adaptable, innovative.
Always looking for opportunities to seize the initiative.
Marines have always prided themselves on those qualities.
Being adaptable, resourceful.
MCWP 510 gives us the tools to keep that going.
Into the future.
The 21st century and beyond.
This has been a great deep dive into MCWP 510.
A lot to think about.
Complex ideas.
But crucial for success in modern warfare.
We always encourage our listeners
to explore these topics further.
Read the document. Think critically.
Ask questions. Never stop learning.
And as you continue your professional journey,
keep grappling with that question
about maintaining our competitive edge in this rapidly changing world.
It's a question that will shape the future of the Marine Corps.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into MCWP 510. Until next time.